In this video, I interview a former cybersecurity college student who now works with victims of ransomware. This video was brought to you by the National Cybersecurity Training and Education Center out of Whatcom Community College. NCyTE Center, and this material is based upon work supported by the National Science Foundation. My name is Philip Kreger. I'm a professor of cybersecurity at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm interviewing PJ, who works for an incident response company and who primarily works with multiple facets of ransomware. This video has been edited for time. Good afternoon. How are you doing, PJ?
I am good, sir. How about yourself?
First of all, you work with ransomware, correct? Not on the illegal side, but the legal side, right?
That's correct.
Okay. How long have you worked for this company?
I've worked there approximately a year and a half.
Can you tell me what you do on the job on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. My job basically consists of responding to ransomware incidents. Our firm does incident response work, i.e. when your company gets hit by hackers and they break in and they encrypt your data. We respond by helping you restore and get you back on your feet, whatever that takes. If it's restoring from backups, if it's for acquiring a decryption program from the threat actors, or if you just need some advice on how to fix your systems because you're just going to rebuild cleanly, we do all of that.
And you also do a lot more that we're not going to talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so they're just for sensitivity's sake. There's a lot more that he does that, let's just say, if it were in the military, it would be classified. I didn't write this question down for you, but do you work a 9 to 5, or how does that work?
Right, so I don't work 9 to 5, actually. We work when it's needed. And trust me when I tell you that in the ransomware world, these guys operate around the clock, and so do we. We come on if you have an incident in the middle of the night. We jump on a call, and we get on the call with you and figure out what happened and how can we keep this from happening. If say the threat actor is still in the network, we attempt to kick them out, and that is not a 9 to 5 job because these guys don't work 9 to 5.
So I assume that means that these bad actors are not most likely from the United States.
Probably not.
Let me ask you this generically. Are you paid well?
Yes.
Yes, I kind of know how much he's paid, and let me just say he's paid very well. But also, I know you were a very good student, and you're a little different from most students.
Yeah, I guess. I enjoy this work tremendously. I enjoy everything about it. I enjoy the basics of even just using the various operating systems to figure out how these things work. The Windows, the Linux, the Mac OS. I'm actually using my personal MacBook Pro to talk here today. And I have a general knowledge of all of that. It's not, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in any of it, but yeah, that's an important part, is to know the various operating systems and how to work your way around that. And hey, why did this Windows system get encrypted? Was it a certain vulnerability? Was it key? Was it something else? I don't know. So we go in and figure that out, and you need to know where those things are stored on the operating system and how they function and keep the server running, for instance.
So you need a breadth of knowledge, not necessarily detailed in every operating system.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like my work computer is a MacBook, but when we respond to incidents and we do, say, remote collections of your environment, we use Linux, and we use Linux and boot your system to our Linux ISO, and then we use command prompt or some other various tools to collect our information and upload them for analysis. Absolutely.
I think I jumped the gun a little bit because I started talking about ransomware, and there's going to be some people who may be interested in cybersecurity that have no idea what ransomware is. So could you give us a short, hopefully non-technical description of what ransomware is and how it works and how you resolve it?
Absolutely. It's really simple how it works, actually. Hacker comes into your network, whatever means that may be, breaks into your network, gets on your server, your file share, whatever, encrypts your data, that only they have the keys for, and they hold your data for ransom, and they want money to get for you to get your files back, and they want payment for their decryption tool to unlock your files, and that's the long and the short of it.
So that was a very good description, by the way. As we call it in cybersecurity, what is the threat vector or attack vector? How is the bad actor actually making the ransomware execute?
Okay, so are you asking what's the initial attack vector, like how they're getting in, or how are they running it, basically?
Can you do both?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So we have basically seen 3 types of attack vectors, and literally this is probably about the extent of it. We've seen Open RDP, which is remote desktop protocol, where if you're, for instance, if you're working from home and you need to log on to your server at your office that's across town, you open up a session and you can log into that server from your house. Another way we've seen is phishing emails. Literally send you an email, you click on the link, might ask you to enter your credentials, or when you click the link, it may drop the malware on your system, which then goes out and gets their ransomware binary, brings it back on the network, and runs it. And then the other method we have seen are vulnerabilities in, say, firewalls. The firewall at your office may not be patched up to the latest version of to prevent these attacks. There have been a lot of high-profile vulnerabilities recently in some firewalls, and believe me, the bad guys know about it.
Once one computer on a network is infected with ransomware, can it spread to other computers on the network?
Absolutely.
And you've seen that?
Yep. We have seen where, for instance, if it's a single user that clicks the link, drops the malware on the computer, it then goes and encrypts, say, if they're mapped to a share on a server where the files are, it'll encrypt all those files, and then it just, if the computers are interconnected, then it just explodes. It's like fire.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be quite a surprise for the IT staff and the cyber staff when they see that. What about your job surprised you once you started working at your current company?
That is really easy to answer. I was naive as to how much this goes on. This goes on a lot more than I can even describe. It's literally everywhere. That's what surprised me the most, is how rampant these guys are, and how much it has, and this is probably going to be a follow-up question, and how much it's taken off, especially in the past year.
Okay, so it's continuing to grow, and I guess that means, tell me if this is my correct assumption, that's because they're actually making money off of it.
Yes.
And
yes.
People don't have proper cyber hygiene. They're using the unprotected RDP. They're not checking their firewalls. And so therefore education and training on both the average user side who gets the email that has the attachment that's actually the ransomware, they should be trained and educated knowing to be suspicious of that.
Absolutely. Right. And so probably the biggest education, as you say, part of it is learning about phishing emails. Learn that, take just a moment to check that address. So if it's coming from Apple, is it APPLE or is it APPIE? Check that. Just make sure. If you don't recognize the sender, don't click it. Don't open that link. Whatever you do, don't click that link. If you get someone from a coworker that sends you an email that says, hey, John, open this up and see, check out this invoice or look at this funny picture. And then you click it and it says, hey, please enter your credentials to download this encrypted document. That's a big sign that you should not have, be doing that. And if you get something like that, X out of it, delete it, and let your IT administrator know that you got something like that. Because chances are, if you got it, so did other people.
So I assume that this is happening to small companies, to medium-sized companies, and even large, well-established companies, international companies.
Yes.
So we know this month that the Colonial Pipeline was hit. Their data was subject to ransomware, and I guess that they paid the ransom. Those are just the ones that we hear about in the news. I would assume that your company, there's no kind of publicity at all involved with any of the companies with whom you all work.
Yeah, no. It's one of those things where nobody's trying to hide anything, of course, but it's also just best to kind of get in, find the problem, fix it, and move on, and hope that it doesn't happen again. I mean, the Colonial Pipeline hack was it was out there because it's a high-profile hack. I mean, that's very important to our infrastructure here in the United States, and yeah, they got in, they did some bad stuff and all of that, but we don't publicize anything really,
right,
at all. So,
right.
And you can certainly understand why companies don't want folks to know that, hey, you're shopping over here and they got hit with a hack. And again, it's not anybody trying to cover anything up. It's just the mistake that was made, and we want to move on from it, and hopefully it doesn't happen again.
So have any of the companies that you've worked with had multiple incidents of ransomware attacks?
Yes.
Okay, were they similar in nature by the same bad actors, or?
We've seen it all. We've seen the same actor get in a couple of different times, and we've also seen different actors get in at different times. And one more, we've actually seen actors in a network, two different actors in a network at the same time. So.
And you were actually on the network as well.
Oh, correct.
So you were watching them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cyber students, doesn't that sound like something out of a James Bond novel? That sounds so interesting. Literally, it does. It's like something out of a movie that you wouldn't believe, but sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
It is. When I started in this, and you and I have spoken before about this kind of, off the record, but it even sounds unbelievable when I think about it, or I tell someone like we're talking now. I'm like, I can't believe that this is this is a job. This is a job that is non-stop. It is never ending, and there are times when there are lulls given the various political climates, as it were. We won't go there, of course, but yeah, so we had, like you mentioned, the Colonial Pipeline hack. Yep, that happened, and things kind of died down a little bit, but boy, it didn't die down very long, because we're back at it today. So,
well, I guess that's good for you and good for your company. When did you graduate, and what was your degree in?
Yep, I graduated in 2017.
Okay, and it's 2021 right now.
Yep, graduated in 2017. And when I got out of college, I actually went to work as a penetration tester. And that was also very interesting. And that's how now you're on, the bad guy side, but legally, right? I mean, we're testing your network to make sure that it's safe from the actual bad guys. And that was a very fascinating field. But once I started looking more into incident response, I found this quite a bit more fascinating, and I actually liked it a lot more.
So what did you learn in school, if anything, that prepared you for either your penetration testing job or your current job?
I learned how to think. I learned how to take a problem at hand and go, okay, how am I going to get to the end of this? Sure, there are plenty of resources out there. There are books. There are great instructors like yourself, Dr. Krager. But ultimately, at 10:30 at night, I don't have anybody to ask if I need to. So I'm going to have to figure it out. And that's what I learned to do. Now, I've kind of had that not trying to sound any other way here, but I've always had that natural curiosity anyway, like, hey, how does this work? How do you spin up a virtual machine in AWS? Hey, my Linux is broken here. Oh crap. Dr. Kreger's assignment is due tomorrow morning. I need to spin up a Linux instance here really quick. So how do you get on Azure or AWS and spin that up and get his assignment done and send it over to him? Because it doesn't matter how you get it done, just as long as you get it done correctly and efficiently. Sure.
It sounds like that the cyber positions you've had, and from what I understand, is that cyber is really about knowing 80%, 90%, and then being able to find the answer to the rest of the piece of the puzzle that will allow you to provide a solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you always have the different questions, and using, even I'll just give you a Linux for instance. I hadn't used cat in a long time. I hadn't used the Linux command cat forever.
What is that?
Right. That's where you can use the Linux command line, and you can basically look at a file and see what's there. Obviously, because Linux treats everything as a file, so we can just get on the command line, type CAT, the name of the file name, and we can look at what's in there. I actually had to do that because I didn't want to open the file on the workstation I was using, but I just wanted to see what was there. I wanted to see if the front of the file was encrypted, I think I was actually looking for like an email address, and it was in there. And like I said, the file, I wanted to just open it safely, basically. I remember now. Yeah, that's what it was. And I hadn't used that, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a skill that I learned back in 2016 or 17 that I can use now to figure it out, and we did.
The reason that the bad actors are doing this is not for revenge, not to be playing around, but it's actually a money-making business for them. No different than Sears or Toyota or...
I work with some folks that have been in this business a lot longer than I have, and they classify it like this. They're in it for the money. They come into their office, wherever that may be. They punch the clock at 9 o'clock in the morning, do their thing, and at 5 o'clock they go home, because it's a business to them. It is literally a structured business. Now, obviously, you're always going to find folks that are, rogue actors or whatever, but yeah, it's a business. It's a money-making business.
Are some bad actors in their groups better at business than others? I don't know if that's clear or not.
Yeah.
They provide a better service, that is. I know, a better decrypting service.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
How can companies better prepare themselves against ransomware?
Yep. I would say pay attention to the various CVEs that show up out there.
What's a CVE?
Right. Those are critical vulnerabilities in systems. Those are various vulnerabilities in systems. Make sure your hardware is patched to the latest version. If you're using a Fortinet firewall, make sure that you have the latest patch installed. A big one that we have seen is the Microsoft Exchange vulnerability. Make sure that if you're using on-prem Exchange, that your software is up to date with the latest updates from Microsoft, and just stay on top of the updates and check your backups more than you think you should, because you just never know. Because as the saying goes, your backup is only as good as your restore. So check that. Check it more than you think you should. Don't assume it's good, because you may have a backup that you think is going every Friday or every Wednesday, and you get hit by ransomware and go, uh-oh, we only have backups from 6 months ago. So that's not the best plan.
A lot of cybersecurity students will know the importance of backups if they've had a few classes, but can you explain why a company would use or need a backup?
Yes. Sure, and not just ransomware, but if you need a backup and you go, oh no, look, I deleted that that database from last week. You may need that backup. It's just a mistake, but hey, let's just roll back to 2 hours ago when the last backup snapshot was good and restore that database. Conversely, you're hit with ransomware and it brings down all of your systems. It's going to take some time to get yourself back up, but at least you can have backups that you can go to and restore the various systems and not have to deal with these various groups and paying the money to get the decryption key. So backups, there's never anything wrong with having redundant backups of all your systems. There's just the let me say it this way, the money that you try and save for not having backups will only cost you more if you don't have them. How's the saying go? It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Right. Right.
I see it every day, every single day, multiple times during the day even. So, yeah. If
a company's infrastructure is encrypted, they're not making any money.
Right. Sorry about that. Yes, we have seen companies that call us and go, help, we're dead in the water. And,
so they
really bad about that. So, yeah.
So they either have to pay the ransom or they have to have backups. And if they don't have backups, they only have one option.
Yep. And that's to just rebuild. We've seen, obviously, all three instances of that where maybe the ransom amount is too much, so the company's like, man, heck with that, we needed all new systems anyway, so let's just go do that. And
so what about just your average employee, your administrative staff, frontline workers that also may have computers and also have an email that's on the network? Should there be any kind of ongoing training and education with regard to cyber hygiene?
Absolutely. Yep. Again, that goes back to probably the main vector we see is phishing emails. Make sure to look for the obvious signs. Hey, Cindy, can you hurry up and open this and check it for me and make sure it's good? Check the name on that email. Is that actually your, finance and accounting person? And check that address. Is it the one that you're used to seeing multiple times during the day, or is it switched? And why are they using that language? They've never asked me to do that before. Why would they do that? Browsing websites. Don't, stay to the sites use an antivirus solution, use an EDR, i.e., endpoint detection and response. Make sure that you have a solution for that in place as well.
Let's just talk about the average student. Should the average student be concerned with having backups and cyber hygiene?
Absolutely. I think that everyone should have backups in multiple places. If you choose to use a USB stick to save your assignments, do that. But you know what? Put them on OneDrive, put them in Dropbox, put them in iCloud. Have more than one backup, because you never know. I'm telling you, you just never know. You may be walking out of class and you're going to your car and maybe you trip and fall and you drop your USB drive down, in a puddle. There goes all your work, but you're like, nah, that's all right. It's a $5 drive and I've got the stuff saved on OneDrive anyway, so I'll just go home and get it from there. Yeah, can't emphasize backups enough. I don't care if you're the biggest organization on the planet, or you're, maybe just someone who likes to take photos of, your family pets, and have backups. It's the days of drive space being expensive is long gone. As a matter of fact, most places even give you, starter packages for free, 5 gig. I think Dropbox is 2 gig, maybe. Heck, even iCloud, if you have an iPhone and you have an iCloud account, I think you get 5 gig for free. Use it. You have nothing to lose by backing up your stuff.
And automate it so you don't forget.
Yeah, right. Automate it, because if you're like me, I won't remember to back up, that financial spreadsheet I was working on, or those photos of the new puppy we just got. Automate it. Let it just, you have an app on your iPhone, and again, you use iCloud or Amazon Photos. Set it to automatically upload when you're on Wi-Fi. That way, you won't have to think about it.
Exactly. So I'll tell a little story. So in my cyber classes, I tell them about the importance of backing things up, and some of the horror stories, even my horror stories going back to the late 1980s, a long time before they were born. And so this semester, this was spring of 2021, I had one student that was in a car wreck that lost his laptop, and another student that spilled coffee or a drink, or somebody else spilled a drink on their laptop, which fried their hard drive and their computer. And I asked them, I said, because an assignment was due, and I said, well, just go get your backup. Neither of them had a backup. So we need to tell these stories, because until it happens to you, a lot of people aren't going to understand that we're not just talking, we're actually trying to educate them, so that when they are in that position, is that they can recover from it.
Yep. And I have a story for you. I know a photographer that he stored all of his pictures, every photo he had ever taken, on this little portable hard drive, right? On this little, gosh, I think it was a 1 terabyte, I think, mechanical platter drive. Had everything on there, no backups. That's just what he did. Well, one day he goes to plug it in, and he heard the dreaded whine of the drive, and you hear those that head clicking across the platters. And you know what that sound means?
The click of death. Yep.
The click of death. That's
click
very
of
good.
death.
Now,
yep.
Had you been paying, and it's very little money, had you paid the, gosh, what, I can't even think of the prices now. Had you had a OneDrive account, maybe for, even $50 a year, that's saving, multiple terabytes of information, you wouldn't have had that problem. You would have said, oh, you know what? Oh, the heck with it. I didn't need that drive. It's old anyway. I'll just go back here on OneDrive and pull it down. Done.
Let me ask you one more question. Do you have your most interesting story you can tell with regards to ransomware?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I probably have hundreds of them. I have hundreds of them. Some are not for public consumption. But I will, I know a good one. We know of a case where a threat actor was basically sitting in the network and watching the emails go back and forth. And he, the company was trying to conduct their business, and we were getting intel that we would go do something and then it would be undone, and we're like, how is that happening? Well, as it turns out, they were sitting in the network watching the email, and undoing the things we were doing. So, yeah.
So it sounds like that this is the kind of job that's exciting, it's challenging, it's going to be changing, because the bad actors will change, their methodologies will change, which means that you will need either continuing education or self-education, is that you will have to keep abreast of the new technologies and motivations and behavior.
Yep, and I think there's nothing wrong with professional education like a SANS or a class somewhere, or DEF CON, or learning about those types of things. But self-education is the key, and I'll tell you why. We might find a vector one day about, say, maybe like a firewall compromise. You're like, oh boy, that stinks. Well, we'll get it patched and all that. The very next day, it'll be something new, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that was even a thing. Well, guess who found it overnight? The bad guys.
Right.
And
yeah.
I will say this to anyone that doubts that this doesn't happen everywhere. Me personally, had nothing to do with my company. I stood up just a single virtual machine inside AWS Okay, a single Linux machine inside AWS did nothing fancy, didn't host anything. It was just a plain Ubuntu instance inside AWS, and within 3 minutes, it was being scanned for vulnerabilities. Yeah. So don't think you're immune, because if you have something that is facing the internet, it's being scanned. It is being scanned, and it's not being scanned once, it's not being scanned twice, it's being scanned constantly for vulnerabilities. They don't care. They might come across your maybe your little home server and be like, nah, there's nothing there. They'll keep going, but they did find it, and don't think they forget about it, because they don't. And they may go buy a target and think, there's nothing there, but they may come back a week later and go, you know what, let's dig into this a little bit more and see who this is, and that's it. And that's all she wrote. And yeah.
Well, PJ, I want to thank you so much for taking your time out of your day for this interview, and I think all students will find this interesting, whether they're somebody who's considering cybersecurity, maybe they don't know what it is, the kinds of jobs. Obviously, you've got a very focused job, yet at the same time, your education was very broad, but at least it allowed you to have a good base for moving into your current position.
That's correct. So my job is very focused, but my job also is focused because it needs to be focused. And let me see if I can, jump off here a little bit and tell you what I'm trying to say. Cybersecurity, when I started looking at it 10 years ago maybe, it was a very niche field. It was a very, I don't want to use the word niche. It was very confined to a few certain things. Now, it's everything. It's everywhere. It's, anything you can imagine, good, bad, or indifferent, happens in cybersecurity. Pick something you like, study it, and know it. And if you don't like that, I promise you, there's something else out there you can do. If you like doing, maybe code app development and checking for security inside different apps that people write, there is a position for that, and it pays well. I don't like coding. I never have. I'm not patient enough for it, but it's out there. If you like web development, great. Guess what? That's going to need to be checked for security. Amazon does it. Microsoft does it. The mom and pop diner down the street should be doing it. They may not, but they should be doing it. Everything needs security. I can't say it any other way. That's why if you have an iPhone, you might get irritated with the updates, but I promise you that they're doing that for a reason. They're doing that to keep your phone safe. They're doing that to keep the bad guys out. And yeah, there's something for everyone out there. Try a few things, see what you like. I promise there is a position out there for you to do that thing.
And just to reiterate, is that this is not only an exciting job and an ever-changing job, but also he gets paid very well.
Yes.
He gets paid very well.
Yeah, my family and I are very happy.
Very good. Well, I'm very happy for you, PJ, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and you have a good day. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
This video was brought to you by the National Cybersecurity Training and Education Center out of Whatcom Community College.